well, I don't see my money leaving.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not happening.
When was the last time you had like proper cash, like a wad of cash in your wallet? I mean, I don't do cash anymore. I have cards, plastics.
Yeah,
So
plastic.
but I spend way more because of that.
Why am I so expensive? Like,
Yeah.
I was like, should I stop drinking water? Like, this is awful. So I do think that a little bit of hand holding could be helpful, only because the anxiety of messing that up. Like, if you mess your money up, you are messing up like 3 generations in one go. So you're like, my God, I don't want to make a mistake.
Let's talk about
Let's
this.
talk about it. Hi, Elhaam.
Hi, Sabah, and also
Hello,
Naveen.
Our illustrious guest for this episode of Let's Talk About This. Can you tell our audience a bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm Naveen Ahmed, and I have a background in banking, investment banking, actually, consulting, academia. I have a few board positions where I provide strategic direction and advise on financial matters. So, yeah, I mean, the podcast that we're having today, it's very relevant to what I do, and it's something which is very close to my heart in terms of having women think about money. I think that's really important because a lot of a lot of women in Pakistan, they don't really think about money because it's uncouth or crass to have these conversations. So I think it's really nice that we're having this conversation and actually specifically discussing money in the context of how women should be managing it, in the context of how women should be saving and planning for the future. So all of those things should be considered.
Let's start first with okay, we're 3 women sitting here.
Yeah.
What's your memory of your first conversation about money? I'm gonna go with you, Naveen.
So my first conversation, I think, probably in business school, really. I have no childhood memory of ever discussing money. I mean, if I needed something, I would have it. And I wouldn't really think about where it came from and what the other person has to go through for me to have what I want in that moment.
Yeah.
So that awareness comes when you actually start discussing money. And so I went to a business school, and that was just the perfect environment for having money conversations, right? But if you were in any other discipline, probably you would delay that conversation until you were actually earning, or you were actually depending on someone to meet your needs.
I want to ask her the same question, but I'm interested. When this conversation came up in business school, did you feel that men in your class had a kind of upper hand on understanding money, or did you feel across the board that there was a bit of everyone was like, I don't know, my dad tells me what
so
to do.
men generally are better informed because at a very early age, they're, in certain families, men run errands and young boys also run errands. So they know how to handle money. If they have to go to the grocery store and get something for their mom, they know how to handle cash. They know what change they're meant to get back. So they have that sense of awareness. And women generally in Pakistan, and especially young girls, they don't necessarily step out of their houses as much to, run these transactions. So when you're not doing these things, there's no way you're going to learn. I mean, you can read about it for sure, but there are certain things that come with doing.
It's interesting because my dad actually, this is because he doesn't trust us to buy sabzi and fruit in the correct way as he sees it. But my dad, his knowledge of tomato, tomato. Oh God, no, we have to get this.
It's your dad.
My dad's here. Yeah.
Your dad's here.
He's like, don't talk about me in the media. How many times I have to tell you?
Why would you talk
He's
about
my
me
content
buying
fodder, really. I always use him
tomatoes?
for jokes. Yeah.
And your dad.
I find that really interesting because my dad chooses to do that. If I come in the next day and I'm like, oh yeah, I bought this for this much, he immediately knows what are the price differences. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there is a power in understanding how the market is even working in terms of your groceries, in terms of gas and things like this. And you're right, young boys kind of get in the know. Not that I'm sitting there thinking that some 14-year-old boy is like sabzi ke paise ye hote, but they do.
It's
they
not even
understand.
just
They're
about
exposed,
the sabzi,
right?
yeah.
They have that exposure, and in Pakistan especially, I mean, women don't have that exposure because they are not part of money conversations. A lot of them are not even part of major purchase decisions. For example, if your family is deciding where to move or what rent to pay or what car to buy, a lot of these women, because they are not contributing to the household income, therefore they're not even consulted.
Considered, yeah.
On
But when was the
these-
last time any of us had a conversation with our dad about the prices of cars or the prices of rent going up? And I mean, we do because
We
we're
live independent-
living on
Yeah.
independently. But majority of the women out there with young boys, they're being groomed by their dads to eventually either take over a business or get into the
Yes.
financial sector or get into a business sector or whatever. So dads are grooming the boys, but dads aren't grooming the girls. They're not having these conversations with them where they're talking about investment opportunities or they're talking about business related.
Often I find they'll just take care of it for them. Assuming we're talking about like a privileged bracket, of course.
Privileged bracket,
but
but-
they will just do it for you and be like, well, it's done. So like,
But
you
these
know,
are
it's
conversations that
unfortunate.
dads
It's
have
Yeah.
with their sons.
for sure.
Like even something as basic as a kid is really interested in a car and the dad's like, these are the specifics of that car and these are the specs and like then this is how much these cars cost. Boys would know that. Girls
Yeah,
wouldn't.
so they're part of a lot more conversations
Yeah.
than we are growing up. So that contributes to their, financial literacy,
Yeah.
so to speak. So they're not doing it in a formal way, but it's just part of them growing up
Yeah.
with certain
A
inputs,
part
and
of
that
adult,
helps.
like becoming
Exactly.
an adult.
coming
Yeah.
of age kind of thing for them.
That's a great way of putting it, is
Absolutely.
coming of age. Because, I feel like it's very, and they also know how to handle conversations about money, like because of this. So I'm gonna go back to the Subzi thing. I don't know why I'm so focused on Subzi today, but clearly, but it's even the ability to negotiate or to barter.
Yeah.
A big part of our culture here is like we do a little bit of like
Negotiation,
back and forth
absolutely.
negotiation. It's part of our market culture, and they are better at it because they can literally, like, the way my dad handles it is very different to the way my mother handles it.
You haven't met like my grandmothers.
No, grandmas kill it, I would say.
Nobody negotiates like them.
But don't you think their generation had more mobility freedom than ours does?
I feel like they had more mobility freedom, but they did not have as much financial freedom as we do.
But they
Right?
were still
Okay.
responsible for budgeting, right?
Yes.
So in those days, with absent communication, I mean, you wouldn't have that many phones or many
Absolutely.
cars per household. So people would invariably need to get out and figure it out on their own.
That's true.
And that generation was able to figure it out because they had nobody to call because they didn't have a phone.
Absolutely.
So
no
they've-
YouTube video
yeah.
teaching you how to do this,
Literally.
or no guest like
Yeah.
you telling us how to do this. Run our life.
Because my nani is very like, she is the type that like if she spends, she writes it down.
Yeah, same.
Very classic. Like and very understanding of like, this is my money and where is it going and how much do things cost. Like she's on top of it, and it's interesting to. My mom's gonna love me saying this, but that the difference in the very next generation where it's kind of like. Like what happens. My dad will tell me what to do. My husband will tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Not that my mom's about to watch this and be like, "What the hell are you saying?"
Yeah.
Not that she's bad. No, that's not true either. Like we're very bad with money. But I think it's interesting that like then you come to my generation and it's like I really want to learn.
Yeah.
But I feel like not only is it that family isn't really there to kind of teach because their own relationship with money is so strange. I don't feel that even institutions kind of set you up to learn. Like there is, I believe, a benefit to the ignorance of people and women, especially when it comes to money, for institutions.
Because it allows you to control them, right?
Yeah.
The person who holds the purse strings also controls decision making in the household. And I think it's very important for women to understand money, to want to have their own money. So that's the starting point, right? You don't necessarily have to work full time, but you should always have skills that you can monetize. And when I say that, I mean, for me, financial security is being able to take care of myself when I have nobody else looking out for me. So that is something that would empower me, give me freedom of mind, and make me feel confident.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, confident about the future in the sense that why should I always have to worry about somebody else taking care of me? What if there's nobody taking care of me? Then
Absolutely.
what? I mean,
Again, me doing this, my parents are going to be like, you ungrateful little brat. No, but absolutely. I'm in agreement with you. And I think it is one of the sadder realities and is a cultural norm for us. And that we see what happens to women as they get older and they go from being at the mercy of like a husband to sons.
Father, husband, son.
Sons.
It's all
Yeah.
men that you're dependent on.
That you become dependent
And
on.
And
if
their
one of
whims
them
and
drops
their
the
likes
ball-
and dislikes and all of those things,
Yeah. And
right?
what
I mean,
they
every
decide
person
is
brings their own
Absolutely.
personality to the
Absolutely.
equation. And
Yeah.
to actually put up with all of them,
Yeah.
their idiosyncrasies and
Yeah.
their attitudes about money,
Yeah.
and what is important and what is not important based on their priorities of how you should spend and how you should live your life.
Yeah.
So I think you give up a lot of control
Yeah.
when you give up control of money.
Yeah.
Okay, so step 1, earn your own money,
Yeah.
be your own person.
You know, which is a tough conversation these days to have, sadly. Like, I do feel that there is a pushback when you're like, every woman should, earn their own money. Some people do kind of not like that conversation. They're like, I have the right to choose to, like, not do that. And I'm like, that's cool. You absolutely do. But what we're talking about is having a backup plan for it.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool if it's working for you now, but you just don't know how the future might play out. And having the ability to earn money is vital.
Absolutely. And I tell everyone that, if you don't have education, go get education and skills. If you have education, monetize it. Have your own money. And if you have income, then you should have, I don't know. I mean, the way I think of it, if I am going to retire at 60, I want enough money to live out of my savings, of
Yeah.
my income for the next 30 years. I never want to have to depend on my husband's money or my son's money. Why should I? So in Pakistan, people treat their children like retirement plans, right?
Yeah.
And
My poor parents, they did not plot that one out very well.
yeah, the investment gone bad.
Yeah, they were like,
situation.
oh
no.
no. That's why they only wanted one kid. The mistake was getting a second.
No, but that also sort of disadvantages the child as well. So people generally, I mean, families should think about retirement, and they should have their own money. I mean, the parents should have their own money for retirement so that they don't have to rely on their adult children, because times are changing, right? Adult children have their needs, they have their aspirations. So something's got to give. Somebody has to give up something for you to have what you want. So it's a very, I don't know, eventually it results in resentment as well. So we are a very codependent society, and we need to sort of move away from that paradigm. It doesn't mean just ditch everyone,
Yeah.
but it also means that, think about your own financial future, think about your
Yeah.
own financial outcomes, and just be reluctant to sort of ask for money.
Okay.
And don't take it in a stride.
Speaking of education, when
Yeah.
it comes to like your financial future and your financial, generally just educating yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Now there are so many more resources out there, but
Yeah.
at the same time, like for example, I go onto like a bank's website, or I go and read up on whatever financial investments there are out there. The language, not everyone understands that. Not everyone even, like, it scares me. In fact, it actually scares me. I read a couple of lines, I'm like, I have no idea what they're talking about. Why is it that they don't make it easier? Like, that whole concept of explaining it to me like I'm 5? Why aren't they explaining it to us like we're 5? We would be more likely to understanding what they're talking about. Right? Something as simple as even just going to the bank and opening a bank account. A lot of women don't. They just make sure that the man goes and does it for them, and then they share accounts or whatever. Because it's so daunting to
was
go
trying
and...
to make a
It
bad
is.
joke.
I
was
hear
like,
you,
my
and I
dream.
think it's hard for everyone, not
Yeah,
just
right?
women. Women are less exposed to financial terminology growing up, so yes, that is a handicap.
Yeah.
But generally, the way these products are structured, the way people talk about them, the way companies market them,
Yeah.
they use so technical and
Yeah.
very specialized language that you have to come from a particular background to actually make sense of it. So yes, I mean, things need to be made easier, but I guess people don't make it easier because then where is the expertise and how will you charge for it?
So they're flexing, basically.
I actually worked for a fintech company.
Yeah.
That's whole purpose was about like financial empowerment for women and like even bringing women into like digital money management and things like that. And my job was to create content to make this simpler. And genuinely, it is very tough too, because I don't think language has evolved to make finance simpler for people in a lot of ways. Like, the concepts themselves are tougher to explain, even if you dumb it down. Like, you got to have a bunch of analogies, metaphors ready to go.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm a bit of the conspiracy theorist on this here podcast, but again, I feel like that is a purposeful thing. It
But
keeps
you know
people
what?
ignorant.
No, I think a lot of money management is very intuitive and it's very common sense based. We've complicated it so that some people can gatekeep it.
Yeah.
So if you just approach these things, budgeting, and you gave the example of your nani managing her own budgets, nobody taught her that. She didn't learn it in
Yeah,
school.
that's true.
She figured it out because it was just so intuitive. Just write every outflow down, write every inflow down. How hard is that?
But you know, it's interesting because I do feel that her tactic of, you know, writing it down or whatever, or even my newfound tactic of writing down what I'm not spending, I feel people can be a bit patronizing about it. Like, I feel like when it comes to finances, like people in our generation who are on top of their stuff, that, oh, you're not investing in bonds, oh, you're not doing this, or you're not doing that. And I'm like, well, your parents might have loved you, okay, and taught you these things. Mine think I'm dumb. They're not telling me.
So many
know?
conversations.
So, you know, there aren't that many options to invest anyway. So they're like, literally, I can count them on my hand, the ways I can spend my money or I can invest my money. So it's really not that complicated to teach. You could sit somebody down and talk to them for an hour or two, and they will have the basics to figure it out from that point on. So I don't know why we complicate these conversations. These are very elementary conversations. What is it? We're talking about earning, saving, having goals for future, and your goals necessarily don't have to be retirement based. Maybe I want a particular car and I'm going to save for the next 3 years to get that particular car. So depending on person and what your life circumstances are, your goals could be going on a holiday, your goals could be buying a car or a house or whatever it is, or paying for your college tuitions, or, you know, so it varies based on your income levels and your socio-economic background. But we are all doing these things in our background anyway. I mean, all of these things are planning, are, you know, budgeting, it's happening. It's just not happening in a formal way.
I feel like they should teach it in school.
So we were talking about this earlier. I heard about this concept that they have in the West called finance gyms. So they've taken the concept of a finance trainer or somebody who helps you budget your finances or manage your finances essentially. So instead of calling it a finance manager, they turn it into finance gym, finance trainer. And I think they've taken that concept for the new generation and made it really simple. So you get attached to, if you go sign up for whatever the app is, or you get attached to one of these trainers who then will sit down with you, go over what finances you have, what investment opportunities, plan your entire financial life out essentially. And I feel like kids these days, a lot of them here in Pakistan especially, have no idea. Do you think we'd benefit from something like that? Like kind of dumbing it down, kind of giving it a perspective that is something along the lines of what they're more used to?
Or just a little hand holding, I think. Like just a little bit. Because you know, you're saying it's simple, and I'm with you. Like when I was working at this job, I'm not gonna say that on day one I was like, I get it.
Yeah.
There was definitely moments where I was just like, what in the hell? You know, but I do think that because there's so much anxiety around money.
Absolutely.
And as we previously mentioned, like, and I talk about this a lot in my own personal work, is the way we earn as Pakistanis, you don't earn as an individual, you earn as a community, right?
Absolutely.
So I do think that a little bit of hand holding
Yeah.
could be helpful, only because the anxiety of messing that up, like if you mess your money up, you are messing up like 3 generations in one go. So you're like, my God, I don't want to make a mistake. So
So you could have formal education in schools, but it could also start with something as basic as you sitting your children down and explaining your decisions. So sometimes when we're traveling, I like buying bags, and you know, my kid would question me, Mama, is it really worth $3,000 or whatever? And I explained that decision to him. Look, this is where I am. This is one of my planned expenditures. It's not an impulse purchase. If I'm going to drop X amount of money on something, I've thought about it.
Yeah.
And it's a fraction of my disposable income. It's something I can afford to spend. And money is there, yes, to enjoy as well, so that you can spend on experiences, so that you can spend on, you know, things you enjoy, you like. So they can be clothes for you, they can be shoes for you, they can be any number of things. And So it's not just all frivolous. Some
Yeah.
of it improves your quality of life.
Yeah.
So yes, there's saving and yes, there's discipline, but then there has to be an outlet for you to do something for yourself. Gift yourself something. Why should I wait for my husband to buy me something that I've been eyeing for a long time? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be
I mean-
waiting a long, long time in that case. But it's because we were talking about this when we were getting ready for the podcast. Because I did bring this up to you that I said I think one of the mistakes people make about money is like you have to. And again, I understand I'm coming from a place of privilege, but I swear it's applicable across.
keep saying this, yeah.
Across layers. But I'm saying like sometimes. Like there will be an argument that like, well, if this person can't afford this, then why do they have this phone, right? And I'm like, in the modern era, to be a working person past the age of 18, no matter the sector, you don't have a smartphone, that will push you out of being hired.
Absolutely.
Even
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
work in restaurant, to work
Absolutely.
in delivery, food panda, things that people, entry-level jobs that are helping support their families. And so sometimes these conversations are like, you gotta just be hardcore about your money and you don't have even a drop of joy in it. I'm like, I don't feel comfortable preaching that to people either.
No,
when
and
I
I
was
don't
in
preach
finance.
that either.
Yeah.
I mean, it would literally kill the joy out of my living.
Yeah.
So why
So,
would I?
yeah. And I think that's like one thing about money that people get confused about, that
Yeah.
it's like, well, if I want to save and I have things to do, then like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense, but like sometimes I feel like people can be very judgmental towards people who aren't in higher earning brackets when they spend a little bit on themselves or their kids or their family. And I'm like,
So
you gotta
it's,
treat
you
people
know-
like human beings, you know?
No.
Yeah.
Generally,
Nobody
the
treats
people
anyone like
you
human
see
beings.
around
Yeah.
yourself, I mean, it's like broke people judging broke people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's it's very sad actually. You see somebody who is having a good time, and not just having a good time, they're probably doing really well in life, and they've worked for it.
Yeah.
So we don't make that connection that effort leads to a particular outcome, which allows them to be able to spend on things that bring them joy. So we as a society can't see people doing well. It's very unfortunate,
We hate
but that's where this is coming from. Why are you buying these phones? Why are you buying these bags? Why are you?
Yeah.
It's because
Yeah.
they can't fathom that their needs are being unmet, and somebody has something better to look forward to.
Can I?
So-
Oh, sorry. No,
I was
go ahead.
I was just gonna like completely swing it to a whole
wait.
other question.
Then
but
I
go for it.
just want to
Yeah.
say this thing, just because I find it very. I keep saying I find it interesting, but not interesting, infuriating. The concept of not letting women work, not letting your daughters, your wives and stuff have jobs, and then simultaneously sitting there and being like, financially I am in ruins. And I'm like, you are literally stopping the growth of your household based on like archaic ideas of what a good woman is.
culture.
So
Sort of
this
bomb.
letting bit
Yeah.
really gets to me
Yeah.
because women are seen as an extension of the male members of the family.
Absolutely.
So they're not treated as individuals with their own dreams, with their own aspirations, with their own needs, and with their own choices. So until we shift away from that paradigm, I think we'll keep having this conversation. Will my husband let me do this? Will my dad let me do this? Even really.
Yeah, literally. And it's especially when I find someone being like, women are, as a big conversation. So I live on Twitter. That's what I call as my house. And a big conversation will be about like, well, women are gold diggers and da da da. And I love to hit back at people like that when I have the time, which I do. And I like to respond to them. And I'm like, okay, so how many women in your household work?
Yeah.
And hamari aurtein to kaam nahi kar-" and I'm like, so then how are they gold diggers? They cannot contribute financially.
Yeah.
And yet when they need money, they're the problem. But if they go work, then they are bad women who are not worthy of your respect. But also they don't get money from you. But they also can't work. And it is such a loop. and
vicious
bug. It's like-
cycle.
Yes.
And then I know you wanted to
No.
get to another question, but
for it.
I was at an Orth March event once covering it as a journalist, and I spoke. They basically brought like a coalition of domestic home workers, and they had like a main speaker from them, and I interviewed her, and she said like it's just incredibly frustrating to be expected to go out and work and then not have any
Control over
control
that
of
money.
that money,
I
and
was
then
just gonna
also
say-
have to contend with, well, you're a woman who goes out and works, so like I can't trust you, and
And
it's like I'm
we-
paying
yeah.
our family's bills.
So
and you
a
have
lot
problem
of
with me.
women in Pakistan, especially from the lower socioeconomic classes, are all working women.
Yes.
essentially. So
They
when
are.
when people say,
Yeah.
"Oh, our women don't work,"
No, they do.
majority of your country is working, right? Women wise, they're working, they're earning, they're usually the only breadwinners in the family. The men are not working. So the men are sitting at home chilling. Women are out there working. When they come home with the money, it's taken away from them and spent
Absolutely.
on whatever the man wants to spend it on. And the woman is working extra hours just to make sure she can pay for her kids' education, she can pay for the groceries, she can pay for the bijli ka bill and all of that. So why?
This is where the digital economy comes into play.
Yeah.
You don't
I was
handle
gonna
cash, so
ask
nobody can take it away from
next,
you.
That was my next
Yeah.
question. So, do you think that in Pakistan, with the way digital is kind of growing and all these digital wallets popping up, and a lot of your financial institutions are now in becoming, gearing up to be more inclusive for women, financial inclusion for women, by giving them these tools to work
So the
with?
tools are available for everyone to use. I think generally,
how many people
as
are
we've
using
been,
them, really?
yeah, because awareness is one and financial literacy is the other, and generally literacy is another.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a cook who can't read, and I feel very badly for her, and I've tried teaching her, but the point is, so there's this woman in middle age who can't read basic Urdu. So that is how disempowered
Yeah.
some people are, and I'm sure she's not an isolated case,
Yeah.
but probably represents like 30% of the workforce there.
Yeah.
So when a person does not have basic literacy, how do you expect them to be financially savvy? And she's a very sensible woman. She understands money in the sense that she knows what she's going to spend on her groceries. She knows what she's going to spend on her children's education. So she understands that. It's just that, in order to be able to tap into these tools, one, a lot of them are not in Urdu.
Yeah.
So that is one limitation. And then the language that we were discussing, so they're not easy or intuitive enough for people to use. Those tools are out there, but then they screen out a vast majority of our population. So yes, the younger people who are digitally literate, they can definitely tap into that, and that's, we have a youth bulge in this country, so that's going to happen, but it's going to take some time.
There are times when I'm actually amazed, because some of our some of our staff, they know more about these digital wallets than, without naming any of these digital wallets.
Yeah.
They know a lot more about it than even I do. A lot of times they're like, oh, why don't you just send it to me through this means or that means? And I'm just like,
yes,
I don't have cash on
because
me.
they have
how
to
do I
send
transfer?
it
Do
to
you have
the
an
villages,
account?
right? And
Exactly.
that's so need, necessity,
Yes.
and that's the mother of invention, as we say.
Absolutely.
So that leads them to get aware.
Yeah.
And I think that happens with men more than women,
Yeah,
because
fair
they
enough.
are meant to be responsible for their households.
I have a question about that too. I also feel that so many young men, of course young women as well, but I feel many young men, they leave their villages and they leave, the corners of Pakistan, and they come to mainstream, cities and stuff to
Yes.
work, right? And the exposure to media here includes the exposure to these type of wallets. Because
Absolutely.
when you have Babar Azam or Shadab Khan, and they're the ones that are pitching a wallet to you.
Yeah.
I mean, you're like, okay, well, I trust this person, and they're seeing media which maybe isn't available to them out there.
Yeah.
And even the fact is like listening to 89 or catching radio or sitting at a, place or working with people who are using these things. So I wanted, because this was a question that you actually had about media and the way it can be used for financial literacy.
So I had a follow-up question for her as well. So
Yeah.
you go ahead.
So I guess I wonder, you as someone who has worked in finance, what could media, in terms of even drama serials and stuff, be doing? Or could you imagine what a show would look like?
Like dramas have now really tapped, like Pakistani dramas. We were talking about this with someone the other day. Pakistani dramas especially have tapped into this amazing socio-economic, they talk about all these things that we are dealing with on a daily basis, right? So they've really tapped into that social aspect of it. So why not tap into maybe finance?
So generally
how to
speaking,
deal with finances
our
and whatnot.
storytelling in this country and our dramas, so I don't follow a lot of them, but I feel that they're not really representative of the struggles of the average person. So they tap into a very privileged class, or they tap into the absolute bottom of the ladder, but they don't talk about middle class problems and middle class struggles, and money is one of them, right?
Yes.
So in a lot of our TV dramas, the lead female character is going to be a housebound woman. She's not going to be a working woman.
Yeah, because
So-
working women are evil on dramas. If you have a job and you dress like the three of us are dressed right now,
Yeah.
curly hair, big sign of evil.
Yeah.
Hair that's
All
not
red
been pulled
flags
back,
everywhere,
big
right?
red flag.
Yeah.
Open hair with no beret is like, whoa, you know that's the bad lady.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Completely
if
cut loose,
tomorrow, if tomorrow we decide to like start our own, like we have our own drama, and this is one of the topics we choose, what would you call that drama? 'Cause you name it something fun.
I can't think of anything fun, but yeah, it would be something normal and absolutely boring and still very relevant.
But I get what you're saying, because like, so I do watch dramas, like quite a bit actually. Like I try to say I don't watch them, but then the minute like I see it on TV,
You
I'm
get
the one
hooked.
You have
standing
to.
in the door.
You can't
and
help it.
And I agree with you that there's either like a romanticization that happens of like poverty class as they want to represent it, or they present domestic help in a very certain way, but for the most part it's like aspirational massive homes in our richest parts of all the three major cities,
And useless women.
and again,
Who-
if they
whose
work
whole goal in life is to just sit and look pretty and do this, family politics
And
and,
cry.
crap.
Yeah.
So you look at shows on Netflix and you'll see that all the women, they're either detectives or lawyers or, business women. They're doing things,
Yeah.
meaningful things. So in our dramas,
Working
we don't
women.
see any meaningful roles in the sense that they never have control of money.
Yeah,
No.
that's
so
true.
they're either
That's true.
splurging their money or they're just looking
That's
pretty
another
and
Also,
thing.
in
sitting
every
down.
drama I've ever watched, there's always at least one or two scenes where it's like we're going shopping, and I'm always like,
Always.
where are you guys going? Because when
Or
I go
getting
to
married.
the mall,
So you're either
yeah.
shopping or getting married.
And they
Yeah.
also don't really talk about, but I
But
guess
they
what
don't
we
talk
were
about the
trying to
financial aspect of it.
Yeah.
The
As
man
in-
is paying for the shopping, so that she has to sit at home, wait all day for him to come home,
And
so he
take
can
her
then take her
shopping.
shopping. So he can
Either
then pay
that
for
or
it.
he
My
can
dream
say
is-
no.
Or he can say,
Which
"No, we're
is
not going
a
shopping."
big deal for me.
Yeah.
I mean, why should I have to ask someone for something I want? Why can't I bloody
So
move
our
and get it for
drama is
myself?
going to be about working women, and it's going to be about us getting up and wanting to go shopping whenever we feel like it, and we don't have to answer to anyone.
I also love the idea of what you're saying. Like, let's look at a middle class family. What does that mean in terms of how much they're earning in a month? And why not demonstrate the story of a family where it's like you have like, because we have the largest youth population in the world. We got a fresh grad. We got someone in their mid to late 20s. We have someone in their early 40s, late 30s. How are they going out there in the working world? How are they managing money? I actually agree that I think a drama serial like that could be incredibly impactful. And it doesn't have to be that they're sitting there doing PowerPoint presentations, this is how I'm saving my money.
No.
But just that you're not alone
Yes.
in
Yeah.
finding this stuff hard to talk about. And I really do think people underestimate
Talk about the
power
cultural
of
aspects.
dramas.
Talk
Yeah.
about the barriers to all of these things, and then talk about how, or show how they've overcome these barriers.
Absolutely. So there are so many biases that we confront, right, on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And when you get stereotyped, I always, think of it in terms of not blaming the person who's stereotyping me or anyone. It's just our very efficient way of making judgments about people based on our experiences. So your stereotyping of someone depends on your exposure in
Yeah.
those situations, your prior experience. And I think, so as women, when we go out and we work, so in the financial industry, I mean, most of them are the people you come across, they have high levels of education, they come from a certain socioeconomic background. So the biases are not as applicable as in other industries where the workforce is more diverse in terms of backgrounds, in terms of education levels. So in a very specific kind of industry, I've noticed that, even if at straight off the bat somebody doesn't believe me or doesn't find me credible, after working with them, they're willing to open up their minds, they're willing to accord me the deference and the respect and, just valuing my opinion.
Yeah.
So that happens and it comes, and I've seen that happen. I mean, people change their minds. It's not like people are set in their ways. People evolve.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's harder for women to get respect in a workplace? And what about, and can we also talk about your industry? How was it for you? Did you have to earn that respect that perhaps your male peers would just get? by being there?
Yes, I mean, as a woman, nothing comes to you automatically. You have to prove that you belong in the room. But in the private sector, especially if you are there, it is because of your skills. Nobody has free money to give out. So if you are in a room, it's because you've earned your right to be in that room. So you have the skills, you have the capacity, and you have the ambition or the desire to make it work, which is the only reason you're there. This is not a for charity kind of industry anyway, right? So for women to have that confidence in themselves, that is the first prereq that I would say. And secondly, yes, I mean, first, straight off the bat, it is possible that in your first interaction with somebody, they may not sense you as somebody who is financially capable. For example, I was in a very senior role at a very young age. And in my first interaction with every client, I'd pretty much get interviewed for the first 5 minutes just to see, just for them to gauge whether she has the skills and the experience to actually deliver what she's promising to deliver.
So annoying.
That's fine. But you get over it. I mean, I got so used to giving an interview in every first client meeting that, you get over it.
But that's the same, by the way,
Yeah.
for any industry that you're in.
Yeah.
They see a woman on the other end who's coming in, and the client will automatically start interviewing you to gauge whether, and it's usually male
Yeah.
clients, to gauge whether you have that skill set or you have the right chops to actually do the
You
job.
know, and I
Which
just
is-
over time come to realize that they're not necessarily trying to be a jerk. It's just that their exposure of women, the
Yeah.
women they grew up
Yeah.
around.
Around.
So they did not have those skills. So,
Yeah.
when they're making a snap judgment, he's like, okay, my mom couldn't do this, can she? My sister can't do this, can
You're
she?
absolutely right. How many men out there have like a mum for a lawyer or they do, but
guys are
they
giving
don't
a
see
lot
them
more
in
grace
action.
than I'm giving. I'm like, well, they better know.
So
No,
things
but
are
that's the thing. They're
improving,
not
right?
exposed to all of that.
Yeah.
If like a man is going out and he's building a house, and a woman architect comes up to him and says, "Okay, I'm going to do it this way," the first thought he's going to have is, "Can a woman really build my house? Like,
Yeah, can she do math?
can she do math?"
And this can she do math bit really gets to me.
That escalated.
A lot of times when I go grocery shopping, people give me back the wrong change. I'm really good with numbers. I do them
Yeah.
in my head. And people, it's always less than what I'm owed. And I'm like, how is it that your error is only one way?
Yeah.
You never give me more money.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
always give me less money.
Yeah.
Why does it happen? And my husband, he never has that thing.
Yeah.
He goes, people give him the exact change. Why is it that you're always miscounting because you assume that I would be bad
She's
at
just going to
maths.
pick it up and she's going to walk off.
She's
No,
gonna
She's
walk
I
not going
think
to
two
count it.
things.
Yeah.
One, agreed that you're not gonna think about it. You're not gonna count the money. It's not that. And I also think the other thing is they kind of count on women not making a fuss. Acha, they gave me a little less. Okay, it's okay, whatever. Like, I'll just.
Oh
Yeah,
no,
but why
the
should
women
we?
I know would take the entire place down.
So my
And be like,
what I
you
always
owe me this much.
Yeah.
How dare you?
You're talking about
But
your
that's
nani.
also-
You're literally speaking about your nani. As my nani would do. My nani would be
All-
like,
all-
my
all of
nani
our
would literally
nannies.
say, if I gave you 5 less rupees, would you
Yeah.
have sold this to me? No, right? So you give me my 5
Exactly,
rupees right
but
now.
also I think it's their armor, right? Because for so long they've had to deal with all of these barriers,
Yeah.
had to jump over all of these hoops. They've become experiences. It all comes from experience.
Yeah.
Can I build off of this? What stereotypes do people have about women and money?
So the first one is women are bad money managers. In reality, women don't take that much risk in the sense that it's a very testosterone thing. So people with more testosterone take more, indulge in more risky
Me
behavior,
sitting
and
here with PCOS, I'm like, yeah. Well, us with more testosterone.
So
definitely
that's a science thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also a physiology thing and it's an attitude thing. So female fund managers, they're more calculated, they're more risk averse. The other thing I would, and what also contributes to this behavior is because women, they generally have lower self-confidence, less bluster than the men around them. If they make a mistake, they admit and they correct it. Men, just to get them to admit that something has gone to shit, and
Oh yeah.
it's monumental. So at work, if I say no to a man, he'd take personal offense to it, versus a male colleague saying no to another client. So one, when you say no to a man, they take it as a personal offense. So that's one of the
Say,
things.
oh no,
you need to-
men love rejection. Men just
no.
I'm
I don't
joking,
know
I'm
what
joking.
comes
No,
into
no, no.
play,
Yeah, no,
but
no.
it's a very ego
But
thing.
you're
absolutely right.
So you
Enraged,
have
yeah.
to be very I mean, in terms of phrasing your feedback,
God,
it has
yes.
to. You actually have to think about
Yeah.
it because
Yeah.
people get
'Cause you have
offended.
to coddle their
they don't want to.
emotions.
Yeah, they don't want criticism. They don't want
You know what?
straight feedback.
We're working so much harder than everyone else out there, like than the men out there, right? We should be paid more. Why aren't we paid
Yeah,
more?
because half the job
We're
is also
coddling
the
them.
coddling.
We're figuring out their lives for them, like literally, and we get paid less. Like, how rude!
Yeah, it is very rude.
It's
No,
very
because-
imbalanced.
See, even now, when we are in a place and you're earning and you have a certain status, you feel privileged to be in that place. A man never thinks about it. They
Yeah.
take it for granted. They walk
Absolutely.
into a room and they want other people to stand up. They walk into a room and they want to be taken care of or attended to immediately.
absolutely.
So when we are in a place, we feel grateful
And
about
that's not
it.
a cultural thing. It's everywhere.
It's like, yeah,
it's
I
just
think
all
it's
men.
a socialized
It's
thing
a- yeah.
almost.
It is
I'm with
socialized.
you. I literally feel that way. I have. I'm not gonna avoid eye contact with my producer. I have been the host of my own radio show with my name on it for 5 years, and I still sometimes find myself walking in and being like, "Sorry, I'm just gonna like get right to my desk." Like, and it's like, what are we doing here? And earlier you made a comment that I really liked, which is like, no one's just bontifying free money. Like, if you're in a room.
Yeah.
It was a decision to put you in that
It was a
room.
commercial
It was a
decision.
commercial decision.
This is being
yes.
recorded, right?
Yeah.
Please save this, producer. Give it to me, because the next anniversary she has on her show, I'm going to throw it right. She has for 5 years constantly.
She brings us up every like
because you bring it up. For 5 years, she's thought she's not good enough for her show.
Yeah.
Why would I have hired you?
I love the way that you like worded it though. That like we feel that if we've reached someplace, someone's been like, "Acha jao." You
Yeah.
can come. It's a privilege. You've made it.
Yeah.
Like, good for you.
Yeah.
Now you work really hard to say. Whereas I have worked with men that I'm like, other than drinking chai and for some reason the obsession with touching your feet in an office, like in chappals, it's my biggest pet peeve.
Why are people wearing chappals in the office?
Yes, suit, dress pants, chappal.
Ouch.
Why? And then don't touch your weird. That could be a whole other episode. Producer, write that down. Feet touching. And I have sat with them that they literally are like, I own this company, and I am at a senior position. They are a much less, and it's fair because they're fresh grads. I'm not putting them down for being hired where they're hired, but it's interesting because their attitude is like, this is my new house. And I run this place.
So
and my
they're
attitude
raised
is like,
to lord it
sorry.
over, right?
Yeah.
That's conditioning. That's socializing, and I think that starts at home.
Yeah.
So if you treat your children like royalty, the boys like royalty, and the women like
The royalty
caregivers.
servants. Yeah. Or the peasants.
So that's going to play out throughout
Yeah.
their life. You're scarring them for life. I think you're depriving boys of the necessary skills, life skills, survival skills. They go to uni, they should be able to fry their own goddamn egg, right?
Yeah. Yeah, literally. like there's really raw emotions coming from us, and I'm like, know how to use the laundry.
It's
sorry,
just,
it's
press a couple of buttons.
The
that's it.
buttons are right there.
You say that we don't take risks, like women generally don't take risks with money, but I have also seen women splurge unnecessarily on a
Not
lot
their
of
own money. I would
Not
disagree.
their-
When they earn their own money, they're very careful with money. It's when they are given money, that's when they're careless about
Yeah,
it.
but the thing is, like, I earn my
Yeah.
own money. I'm very independent, and then I feel empowered to go out and splurge on whatever I want, and I don't have to answer to someone. So I would be more likely to spend more because I'm not answering to someone. Back in the day when I was getting pocket money from my father, there was no way I could go up to him and be like, "Yeah, I'm going out for like a 10,000 rupee meal." I would have to answer all of those questions. Same with generally women who are dependent on men. They have to answer to the men and be like, why am I spending 10,000 rupees on an average Tuesday? Like, now I have my own money, I can spend
But
it.
do you? So you're talking about the stereotype that women splurge, that they don't control when
They don't
spend.
control what they spend. They have, but it comes in bursts, right?
Yeah.
There are moments where they're like, oh, I've just been through a
I
breakup,
would
so I'm
call
going
it
to
the
go and
learning
like
curve
binge.
effect, really. So you binge splurge.
Yes.
So I used to be that person who would walk into Sephora and buy $500 worth of cosmetics that I'd never use
Yeah.
and would eventually throw them out
Yeah.
because I'm just not a makeup person.
Yeah.
So the thing is, you do that, but it's a learning curve.
But it's
and then
in
I realized
bursts. I'm not saying
gonna
that it's
do
always.
this.
I'm not saying, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I understand that stereotype is like, it's like a thing. But I'm not saying always. They do it in bursts where it's always driven by emotion.
Yeah.
And that's also, I mean,
That
men are
was a
just like,
stereotype,
you're so
yeah.
emotional. that you're going to end up spending so much money, which is why I have to control your finances.
No, because also you
I
don't
do.
feel responsible for saving
It's
for the
coming out from
future.
inside.
I think when you make yourself responsible for your own future, so you're earning, right? But you're not thinking about your retirement or your future right now. But if you
emergencies.
or emergency,
Yeah.
I mean, I personally would advise everyone to have, like, you know what you spend every month. You should have 12 months of savings with you before you go out and buy that new Joda or whatever you're going to splurge on. And that should be the baseline for everyone. And women find themselves in all kinds of situations. So even women with family members who are willing to support them can find them at the wrong side of things, right?
Right.
And when that happens, where does that leave you? You stay in a bad or an abusive or an exploitative situation because you don't have enough money to walk out.
And that happens
Of that
more
situation.
often than
Yeah.
none in Pakistan. I mean, just on these social media groups that you're on, majority, if you just if I open it right now, the last 3 or 4 messages out there are all young women who married early or are married, are complaining about the fact that I want to leave him. He is whatever been horrible to me,
But I can't afford to.
I can't afford to, because no education, or I didn't finish my education, don't have a job, not financially independent. It all comes down to not being financially independent and not being able to even something as big. Well, it's a big deal for if you have kids. Who's going to pay for their schooling?
Yeah.
He's not
Because
going to
you
do
need
it.
to
No,
take
because
that
you'll
risk.
also lose
Yeah.
your kids.
Yeah.
You'll lose your kids because you cannot pay for them to do things.
And that's
right?
happened to 6 degrees of separation. It happens to everyone.
Every socioeconomic class.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you need to start thinking about those
Okay,
things. It's not because you're actually preempting them to happen. It's just that, in the absolute worst case, what are you thinking about? I mean, you have to rely on yourself. So
So now that we've talked about this, I also want to mostly for me and for our people who are watching us, but mostly for us, can you give us a few tips or something to kind of for women out there on where they should start? Because often you can read up about it, there are all these YouTube videos about it, but when it comes to on the ground reality, right, where should I start with saving, investing, where can I go, who can I talk to? I need a coach. I need a financial coach.
okay, so the starting point for me would be if you're earning.
Yeah.
I personally, when I started working, I didn't have to take care of household expenses. So whatever I earned, I would, whatever I wanted to voluntarily do for my family, I would do. But it wasn't expected.
Yeah.
So I was able to save a large amount of money for myself, and I was able to put down the down payment for my home, and I was able to get a bank loan for it because I was a bank employee, right? And in those days, the interest rates used to be at 6%. So I made use of that opportunity. So look at your surroundings, look at your financial circumstances. What is it that you need? And what do you need to pay for it? I mean, how much do you need to save for it?
Yeah.
So it starts with having financial goals. I always
Like a
wanted
checklist.
a home of my own so that, everything goes to shit. I know I can walk out of the door and I have a place to board at.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So just having that security, it's a huge freedom. It doesn't mean that I fight with my husband every day. I don't.
Yeah.
But the point is, if I did,
Yeah.
I had an exit.
Absolutely.
Always plan for your exit, not because you want to actually make that exit, but because if somebody is bad to you,
It's a
and if you
backup plan,
are-
right?
Yeah, it's a
in
backup
life, you
plan.
have backup plans for everything.
So women should always have exits.
When I was growing up, I started earning. And so my mentality was earn, spend it all on something big. I'm very Aries in that way, especially when I was in college. Because I would be well, I want to go, go to the beach, or I want to do some sort of vacation or something. I went to college in the States. I'm they're why would you need to travel to the beach? It's 40 minutes away from your studio. But I remember my dad would say to me, never go anywhere that you can't leave. And I used to be that's so privileged and that's not the way to think about it. But then I ended up in a situation where I was if I had the money, I would drop my card right now and turn around and board a flight right back home because I don't like the situation I'm in. And now this has become my mantra when it comes to money is I'm do not be in a situation that I cannot walk out of.
Absolutely.
Because you never know. And I like how you said planning for bad things doesn't mean that you're manifesting bad things. It
Yeah.
means, if anything, you're manifesting safety for
Absolutely.
yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it
Absolutely.
gives you freedom, and I think it gives you peace of mind as
Yeah.
well.
Confidence.
You feel secure in your future. So that's a
Yeah.
big thing to have. So women who don't work should still, if you don't have skills, I encourage you to go out and get them. You don't necessarily have to, in this day and age, step out of your house to earn money. So there's a lot of work that you can get online, but the first step is to get yourself education, and a lot of education and skills can be had for free nowadays because because information is literally democratized. So yes, you can go to a fancy school and get degrees, but even if you don't go to a fancy school to get degrees, you can get a lot of functional information on the internet for free and make use of it. I mean, you have time on your hands, assuming you're not working. You do have, can you not, set aside 2 hours or 3 hours every day just to educate yourself, just to get those skills? Once you have the skills, you should be able to monetize them, and you will find ways to monetize them.
Yeah.
So have an independent income always. So women who don't work, I consider them an anomaly. I mean, I have had a period of time when I took a career break. Even then, I had some savings, and I would, I had independent decision making in terms of what I wanted to spend on and how I wanted to. I wouldn't go to my husband if I wanted something because I had my own money. So you have to have that financial security. Why should you wait for somebody to tell you what you can have and can't have?
But that's also, it's the drive, right? It's what drives them to do certain things. Like
They've been conditioned like that. I mean, the concept of good women stay at home, are docile, make sacrifices. What sacrifices?
But for
man?
them, they won't make those sacrifices. But if, for example, you tell them for your children's future, you need to make yourself
Yeah.
financially stable. Your husband is not the right person for you. Going forward, there's no future there. So for the sake of your children, if not for yourself, because women have this innate thing where they will sacrifice themselves for the sake of someone else, right? For their husband, for their children, for their parents.
Yeah.
They will never look at themselves. They will be like, no, but for my child, I will do this.
No,
for
because
my
they've
husband,
been
I will
taught
do
that
this.
that is the right behavior for a woman to exhibit.
True.
I was gonna say, I do wish we got to this earlier because we are reaching a wrap up point. But I was gonna say that, of course, I always have to give this disclaimer. We are talking about like some privileges that are at play here, because I was gonna say there are some women who like literally don't have a phone. Even if every man in their household has a smartphone, they do not have one. And I only know this because I've like written about the internet and stuff like that. However, I did want to say that I wish we had talked about this, although I'm taking 40 minutes to get to my point. But I wish financial institutions, or at least, I don't know who can do it, the government, somebody, makes men understand that the women in your home earning is not the loss of your control. It is the betterment of your generation and those that'll come next to it.
It's
You know?
common sense. You
Yeah.
have one person
But to
earning,
them, it's not
and then you have
common
like four
sense.
other people earning.
You know,
That's
to
in
them, it's the
Pakistan,
good
we
woman
have this
thing.
really toxic mix of patriarchy plus religion.
Yeah.
That disempowers people,
Yeah.
and men who are supportive of women working or actually being financially independent, they are shamed into it by
Yeah.
the circle of family and friends.
That's true.
So it's a mindset shift, and it takes a generation. It doesn't, I mean, all of those people have to die and new people have to come in before you will
Fingers
actually
crossed.
see
What about?
before you actually see a shift in mindset.
We're big on that. We're cool with
I
that.
mean, the younger people, they don't think like the people from the generation before used to think. So women who are currently not employed and in the foreseeable future, they don't expect to be employed or have an independent source of income, my advice to them would be, if they control any cash in the household at all, be it for groceries or any other spending money they get from their husbands, I think it's wise for them to look at their expenses, economize there, save a small fraction of that as a rainy day saving, in the sense that, if something bad happens with the family, if something bad happens with the main bread earner, or somehow your domestic situation has changed for the worse and you are the victim of domestic violence or any other kind of emotional abuse, for example, then you have enough money, and it's not just money. So women who have control of cash can save some money So that is one. And if you have gold, so in Pakistan, gold comes as dowry. So if you have access to that, please hold on to it. Do not save it to pay for household expenses, because then that leaves you with no exit plan, that leaves you with no backup plan. So, and everybody understands that gold over time appreciates in value. So that is, if you don't have any wealth, that gold is your wealth. But over the long term, I think we need to have these conversations with your spouses, with your partners, with your brothers, whoever is in charge of you, that you need to step up and stand up for yourself. You need to ask for your rights. They will not be given to you, handed down to you on a golden platter. You will have to say that you want something. It's legit. It's a legitimate want or a need, and it is it's a legal thing that you're asking for, right? Your ability to earn, your ability to be financially independent, and nobody should stand in the way. And if somebody is really making it hard for you to get access to money, to actually have your own money, then you need to reconsider your bonds with them. Is it really worth it to spend the rest of your life, the next 30, 40, 50 years with this person who is going to always control your decision making, always control your financial freedom, and leave you in a place where you have no security, no peace of mind, and absolutely nowhere to go? So reconsider your relationships with those people, and the first battle is fought inside your mind.
There are women out there, like this lady who works for me. There are so many times when she's come up to me, told me about her struggles, told me they come from a very, very poor background, minority, and she got married off when she was really, really young by her family, because her family felt like she needed that protection, that if she was married to a man, then no one else can mess with her. So got her married off within the community, had a bunch of kids. He turned out to be a not such a great guy, alcoholic, this, that. She's working 2 jobs, earns more money than he does. She is the main breadwinner of the family. Goes home, slaps her up, takes the money from her, spends it on whatever his bad habits are, right? She won't leave him, because whatever he's giving, even his little contribution is contributing to the roof on their head, contributing to the rent at the end of the month. She's still earning the majority. She's putting her kids through school, but that little bit that he's contributing does help to the rent. So that was her excuse when I told her, why are you still with him? Like, you need to empower yourself enough that you can do this on your own. You're already doing this on your own. No one had ever actually sat down and told her that you understand that you are already empowered. You're working 2 jobs, you work all day, you're putting your kids through school, you're putting food on their plates, you have actually essentially put that roof on your head. You are already there. But she had no understanding of the fact that no, she's not independent. She still needs that man to be that whatever shelter, to be that culturally, just the fact that she's married and he's in the home, she's not shunned from society, or society isn't attacking her in some way.
So, a lot of it is cultural, in the sense that we don't necessarily we haven't really learned how to define abuse. Toxic behavior is the norm in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Getting yelled at by the husband is the norm. It's not a deviation.
Yeah.
In any other part of the world, that's grounds for, a complaint to the police. So all of those behaviors are tolerated because women have no awareness of how they ought to be treated.
Yeah.
So that comes with education, that comes with having these conversations. We can't wait for the government to come and talk to these women.
Yeah.
They're not even probably ready and mentally able to have that conversation with them. And then women have this concept of shame, where they will try to hide abuse as well. They will not report abuse to their immediate families.
Yeah.
So, like I said, one, always remember that you deserve to be treated with respect. Always remember that you deserve to be financially independent. Always remember that because the consequences are yours, the decisions have to be yours, because that's the only way you will be able to live with those decisions. So women, once they have that understanding, and when they have that, the empowerment has to start in your head.
So this is the other thing that she has done, is that because of her circumstances, she's also found a way around it, where she'll come to me at the beginning of every month when she gets paid, and she'll be like, look, I'm taking this much home, this much you please keep for me. You be my bank, so that I'll only tell him, because when she got an increment, she didn't tell her husband, because she was like, he'll just drink it all away, or he'll go and spend it on something or the other, and like I wouldn't have that as a backup plan for when someone in my family
But you
gets
see
sick.
how afraid she is of that man.
Absolutely.
And she needs counseling to be able to break away. So that's
Yeah.
the problem with victims of abuse.
Yeah.
They are, attached to their abusers.
I'll
They
also
need to
say
be
though,
counseled
like,
to walk away.
truthfully, I don't think this is a topic that we can handle in just this podcast alone. Not to cut it off, but
Yeah.
only because like first, well, it is a different topic to begin with, but it's also just the fact that like, yes, counseling and police intervention and all these things, but just my years of reporting on women, it's just even counselors will just send you right back, and police will send you right back, and
Because they
and
come
it's
from the same society,
and we all
right?
come from the same society, the same culture, and again, I am telling you from the tip top of our socioeconomic to the bottom,
Yeah.
the same cultural norms exist, the same shame for women, the
Yeah.
same what is a woman who was once married who is now unmarried mean,
Yeah.
what kind of woman is that? That's not a mother, because as we mentioned earlier, a good woman sacrifice. So who cares if her home life is literal hell?
Yeah.
She's just supposed to sit through it, and it's tough. Like,
But
I don't mean to
again-
cut off our conversation. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm spitting everywhere from the rage. I don't mean to cut off our conversation, but I do think in order for us to talk about it the best way possible.
But again, for these
probably-
women, right?
Yeah.
From the top to the bottom that we've talked about today.
Yeah.
For all of them, they need to empower themselves financially, and they need to empower themselves in educating themselves about what options are there out there for them.
I think
And
that's on.
in a
as you were
forward-looking
saying-
way, I
Yeah.
think parents who are, I hope they're watching this podcast, but parents who are actually watching this and hearing these conversations, they need to let their daughters finish their education. Marrying shouldn't be the most important milestone in a
Yeah.
woman's life. There are other things to live for. So
Yes.
sure, I mean, get married. I mean, if it brings you joy, but money should not be why you marry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really important
And
for
you know
parents
what?
to get it
Absolutely.
through
It
their
doesn't
heads as
always
well.
work either. When you're sitting
doesn't.
there and you're saying, I'm going to marry rich, it is not as easy as it looks.
Yeah,
God
no
knows me
money is
fine.
handed to you on a platter for free.
Literally. And yeah, it's one of the biggest conversations I've had with women. It's like, shadi.
Yeah.
Never beyond Rukhsati do we talk about what happens next. Like,
Next,
what is a
exactly.
marriage? What is money? What is correct behavior? And I don't think anyone is like, I can't wait for my daughter to be in an abusive relationship. Like, that's not, I would hope nobody has that mentality. But we don't, when we were even talking about equipping girls with financial knowledge, we don't equip girls with any knowledge.
Any knowledge,
Because
yeah.
a good girl, a good woman is a malleable object that can be
Customizable.
Who will take it lying down.
Yeah, take
Yeah.
everything on and be put wherever she is put. She will mold and she will work it out, and that's if she's good.
Yeah.
Now, if she expresses, "Hey, this doesn't feel so great," now she is bad.
Yeah.
And like it is literally as simple as I literally could have called this podcast "Good Woman, Bad Woman" because that is. I feel like it comes into everything.
Yeah.
And I think as women, we
Yeah.
should be okay with being labeled as bad.
Oh, I love
Yes,
it.
Yeah.
I
tell myself,
love
I say,
it.
I'm a baddie all the way through.
Yeah.
I wish it was more. I
Own
have a
it.
more interesting one,
Yeah.
but I am bad.
Yeah, own it.
So-
Wear
I'm
it
proud
with
of
pride.
it. I'm proud of the fact that I'm bad and I'm independent and I do all those things that people don't expect of me. I love it.
Even you,
Because life's so much more interesting.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But even you speaking to the woman that works for you
Yeah.
about money, finances, and a different approach to life
Mm-hmm.
that maybe does not include this husband, that is also bad behavior. But that is
Yes.
bad behavior, which I think we should encourage. So when we were talking about
Yeah.
well, what can we do? Because I've been negative about it in this
Yeah.
very podcast just about 20 minutes ago, where I'm like, well, what can we even do about it? But these things do help because
do.
we can beg the government that do something about this, but really when you have a head of house who's going to say, well, I don't trust the government and this doesn't align with the way I see my life, so
Yeah.
we can just throw it out in the trash.
So basically, I really liked her idea of just wipe it all off.
Yeah.
Start from scratch.
Yeah.
So like build up from scratch. I think we should.
I'm almost
do that.
always rooting for like Mad Max Fury Road type end of days, but yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much for being here. It's actually been very easy and a very delightful conversation, because normally whenever there are conversations about finances or anything to do with money, we're always like, oh, anxious. But this has actually been a really, really easy conversation to have.
Yeah.
No, it's it's a pleasure to be on the show, and you girls are really, really interesting to talk to.
Yeah.
So I've had a really good time.
Thank you. So have we.
And this is not we're going to bring you back.
Yeah.
We will, don't worry, that we have plenty of questions in other
Yeah.
genres as well. So
Plenty
we're
of things
definitely
to
going to have
vent
you back.
about.
Yeah. This is basically what our podcast is. It's
Yeah.
just us venting.
Yeah.
It's us also giving each other therapy. So it's a great community
It is
therapy session.
Free therapy, right?
Yeah,
Free therapy.
absolutely. Last question before we leave. If you were to give yourself some form of financial advice to your younger self, what would it be?
So from the get-go, the day I get my first paycheck, I should always put aside something. So, most people, they go hyper when they get their first paycheck. They want to treat their families, they want to buy something, splurge on something. Yes, all of that will happen. You've got literally a lifetime to make that happen. But put something down, make a decision. I'm going to save 20% of my salary every paycheck, come what may, and it's money I can't touch until X happens. So you have to approach money with that mindset, in the sense that you have to think of it as an investment in
Like
your
a
future.
piggy bank
It's not,
concept, right? Like when as kids,
Yeah.
like I remember my parents giving me a piggy bank.
And
I mean,
don't
I
do
didn't
the
understand
committee
the
thing,
concept.
please. And never do the committee thing.
my God,
it's
we
like
didn't even talk
the
about committees.
absolute
Yeah, I wish
worst
we
way
talked about
of
committees.
saving
That should be a
money.
whole other episode.
Yeah, honestly, it could be. Maybe we'll have you back to
Yeah.
talk about committees, because it is such a cultural thing. My advice to myself would go against feminism and the very no, I'm joking. My advice to myself, honestly, would be very similar. I think two things, really. One is the moment I started earning, even if it was $1, $2, $3 to $10 a month, I wish I had just started setting that aside in some kind of account that I do not touch, right? And number two, I would say, like, I wish I had started working smarter, not harder. I think there was a concept of like, what kind of jobs does a teenager do? And I do think that I've seen so many Pakistani youths be brilliant with the fact that they're like, yo, I'm good at coding, I'm gonna get into coding. I'm good at copywriting, I'm not gonna wait till I'm 22. I'm gonna start getting into those jobs now. And I think, like, don't discount being young as being excluded from building what you can do. And I think that would be the two advices I would give myself, pieces of advice.
I'm on the same page. Like, I wish I had told myself, you know how you have college funds and this fund and that fund, make an Elhaam fund.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Invest in
absolutely.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, you're investing, but invest in yourself, whether it's something small or if it's like whatever investment. But
And it
invest in
doesn't
yourself.
have to be in physical, tangible assets that you'll buy X at X
Yeah.
date. It could be just upskilling yourself. If you have college education, go do a PhD. I mean,
Absolutely.
do whatever.
Yeah.
Get some
Yeah.
skills
Yeah.
that you can monetize later.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Great. I love
And
the
all I
idea of
know
a
is-
Sabah fund.
I've always wanted an Elhaam
Yeah.
fund. No one's funded it.
Yeah.
I'm
So
still
you gotta do
I
it
need to do
yourself.
it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I need to do it
It's
myself.
a whole relying on me
So,
thing that I
we
sort
do
of
for other people
politically
to start
completely
my fund.
misaligned with.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
all right,
On
we
that
talked
note,
about it.
We talked about it.
Is that how we should end it?
Yeah.
All right, bye.
Bye.
See ya.